The new trailer for Blood of My Blood Season 2 just dropped, and there is one moment in it that has completely changed everything we thought we knew about this story. Claire is about to find Henry, and nothing will ever be the same after this. Let me be completely honest with you. When Blood of My Blood was first announced, I was excited, but I also had one major concern sitting in the back of my mind the entire time. The concern was simple. Can this prequel actually connect to Outlander in a way that feels real and emotional, not just something the writers threw in to keep fans happy? Because we have all seen shows do that before. They promise big connections, they tease emotional reunions, and then when the moment finally arrives, it feels rushed, hollow, and honestly a little disappointing. So I was cautious. I kept my expectations in check. I told myself to just enjoy the story of Julia, Henry, Ellen, and Brian on its own terms without constantly waiting for the franchise to tie everything together. But then the Season 2 trailer arrived, and I want to tell you, whatever walls I had built up around my expectations came crashing down instantly. Because this trailer is not teasing a small connection. It is not dropping a subtle hint or giving fans a quick Easter egg to obsess over. What this trailer is doing is something far bigger than that. It is actively showing us that the two worlds of this franchise are about to collide in a way that fans have been dreaming about since the very first episode of Blood of My Blood aired. And the center of that collision, the one person standing right at the heart of it all, is Claire. Now, before I get into exactly what the trailer showed and why it matters so much, I want to take a moment to go back to where Season 1 left things. Because if you want to truly understand why this trailer hit as hard as it did, you need to remember just how brutal that Season 1 ending actually was. Julia and Henry were running. The Grants were hunting them down with absolutely no mercy and no intention of letting them escape. And in those final terrifying moments, Henry grabbed Julia's hand and pushed it toward the standing stones. It was a desperate move. It was the move of a man who had run out of every other option and was willing to gamble everything on the one chance they had left. But here's the thing that kept so many fans up at night after that finale. The gemstones. In the Outlander universe, you cannot just walk up to the standing stones and travel through time whenever you feel like it. You need a gemstone. It is what anchors you, what gives you even a small amount of control over where and when you end up. And while there's a real possibility that Julia and Henry had gemstones hidden somewhere on them, little baby William absolutely did not. He is an infant. He had nothing. And that detail, right there, is what made that cliffhanger so completely devastating to watch. Because the worst-case scenario was not just that Julia and Henry would fail to travel. The worst-case scenario was that they would succeed, and William would be left behind. Alone, in the hands of people who wanted to use him, control him, and raise him as something he was never meant to be. I remember watching that ending and feeling genuinely sick about what it could mean for that baby. And I was not alone. Fans across every platform spent weeks debating exactly what happened at those stones and whether William made it through with his parents or not. And now, with this new trailer, we are finally starting to get some answers. But as always with this franchise, every answer comes with at least two new questions. And the biggest new question this trailer is forcing us to ask is one that connects directly to the heart of the entire Outlander story. Because somehow, in a way the trailer does not fully explain yet, Claire is involved in whatever is about to happen. And the moment the trailer gave us that hint, everything shifted. The stakes got higher, the emotions got bigger, and suddenly Blood of My Blood does not feel like just a prequel anymore. It feels like a completely essential chapter of a much larger story that we have been living inside of for years. So let's talk about what the trailer actually gave us, because I have watched it more times than I am willing to admit, and every single time I find something new to think about. The trailer is not long. It does not hand you everything on a silver platter. This franchise has always been smart about how it markets itself, and Season 2 is no different. They give you just enough to pull you in completely, and then they cut away right before the moment you most want to see. But even with everything they deliberately held back, what they did show us was more than enough to send the entire fandom into a spiral. The most significant thing the trailer does is confirm that the stone crossing from the Season 1 finale did not go the way Julia and Henry hoped. And honestly, looking back at how that scene was set up, a part of me always suspected things would go wrong. It was too chaotic. The Grants were too close. There was too much panic and too little time for anything to go smoothly. And the trailer is now telling us that the fallout from that moment is going to define almost everything that happens in Season 2. The consequences of that crossing, or perhaps the failure of it, are going to ripple through every single storyline this season is building toward. Now here is where it gets genuinely interesting. The trailer shows us Julia in a state that is clearly not okay. She is not in the same time period she was trying to reach. She does not appear to be with Henry, at least not in the moments we are shown. And she looks completely lost in a way that goes far beyond just being physically separated from her husband. There is something in her expression that reads like a person who has traveled and arrived somewhere completely unexpected, somewhere she did not plan for and does not recognize, and is now trying to hold herself together long enough to figure out what her next move is. If you have watched enough of this franchise, you know exactly what that look means. It means the stones took her somewhere else entirely. And William. The trailer is very careful about William, almost suspiciously careful. We get brief glimpses, but nothing that clearly tells us whether he traveled with Julia or not. And I think that is completely intentional, because William's fate is one of the central mysteries this season is being built around, and the show knows that the moment they confirm what happened to him, the audience's entire emotional focus will shift. So they are holding that back. They are making us wait, and as frustrating as that is, it is also a sign that whatever they have planned for William is significant enough that they do not want to spoil even a hint of it before the season actually airs. But then comes the moment that stopped me completely. The moment the trailer slips in almost casually, as if it is not one of the most emotionally loaded things this franchise has ever put on screen. There is a scene, brief but unmistakable, where we see what appears to be a direct connection to Claire's story. Now the trailer does not spell it out for you. It does not put a title card on screen saying, "Here is your Claire connection, enjoy." It trusts the audience to be paying close enough attention to catch it, and when you do catch it, when that moment lands, the feeling is genuinely difficult to describe. It is the kind of feeling you get when a story you have loved for years suddenly reveals that it was always building toward something bigger than you realized, and you were just too close to it to see the full picture until right now. I have been saying for a long time that the constant references to Claire's parents throughout Outlander Season 8 were not accidental. Claire talked about Julia and Henry more in that final season than she had in years, and every single time she did, it felt like the show was nudging you, reminding you that this part of the story was not finished yet. At the time, some fans thought it was simply promotional, a way to keep Blood of My Blood in the conversation while Outlander was wrapping up. And maybe that was part of it. But I always believed there was more to it than that. I always felt like those references were laying groundwork for something real. And now, watching this trailer, I feel more confident about that than ever. Because the connection the trailer is hinting at between Julia, Henry, and Claire is not being framed as a small moment. It is not being treated like a fun little Easter egg for dedicated fans. The way this trailer is structured, the way it builds its emotional momentum, everything points toward this Claire connection being a central pillar of Season 2's story. Not a side detail, not a cameo, something that genuinely matters to the plot in a deep and lasting way. And that changes everything about how we should be thinking about what this season is going to deliver. Now let's get into the part that I genuinely cannot stop thinking about, because this is where the theory side of my brain completely takes over, and I am not even sorry about it. The trailer gave us enough to confirm that Claire is connected to what is happening with Julia and Henry in Season 2. But it did not tell us how. It did not give us the mechanics of it, the timeline of it, or the emotional context of it. And that gap, that space between what we know and what we do not know yet, is exactly where the most interesting possibilities live. So let me walk you through what I think is actually happening here, and why I believe it matters far more than even the most excited fans are currently giving it credit for. The first thing we need to establish is the timeline, because in this franchise, the timeline is everything. If Julia traveled through the stones at the end of Season 1 and ended up somewhere unexpected, the question of when she landed is just as important as where she landed. The Outlander universe has always been very deliberate about using time travel not just as a plot device, but as an emotional mechanism. Characters do not randomly end up in arbitrary time periods. They end up exactly where the story needs them to be, in moments that carry the maximum possible emotional weight. So if Julia traveled and arrived somewhere disconnected from Henry and William, I do not think she landed randomly. I think she landed somewhere specific, somewhere meaningful. And the most meaningful place Julia could possibly land given everything we know about her story and Claire's story, is somewhere within reach of her own daughter. Think about what that would mean for a moment. Julia has spent her entire journey in this show as a mother first, and everything else second. Every risk she took, every sacrifice she made, every desperate decision she pushed herself toward was rooted in protecting her child. And now, if the stones have placed her somewhere close to Claire, whether that is in the same time period or close enough that their paths could cross, then everything Julia has been through suddenly takes on a completely different meaning. It stops being a tragedy about a mother separated from her child and starts becoming something far more powerful. It becomes a story of a mother who was always moving toward her daughter without even knowing it.